the 2023 Honda HR-V, and it's apparently targeting Gen Z. I'll touch more on that towards the end. But what you need to understand about this new HR-V is it's essentially the Civic on stilts, just a slightly more raised up Civic. So if you want to know my thoughts on driving the Civic, I'll leave that down in the description box below. But let's go ahead and let's get into the changes for the all new HR-V. And let's start with the interior, because one of the things that really blew me away with the all new Civic was the interior space. They've really made a nice, luxurious, high quality interior that rivals and actually in many ways exceeds something like a Mazda interior. Mazdas are known for having some of the best interiors in kind of the normal car segment. Well, Honda has matched them in terms of material quality. However, Honda has always had a phenomenal fit and finish. So there's no creaks and rattles. It's just put together a little bit more solid, screwed together a little bit better than some of the Mazda products that I have tested. So this is my favorite part about the new Hondas that are going to be coming out very soon, like this new HR-V, because they have a simplistic ergonomic design for the cabin, comfortable seats. You have these nice tactile buttons and knobs and switches similar to something like an Audi. It just gives the vehicle a nice premium feel when you sit inside of it. You'll have two different infotainment options, a 7-inch screen and a 9-inch screen. I tested out the 9-inch in the fully loaded Civic, the 2022 model, and it's great, easy to access, no real learning curve attached to it. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are obviously standard. However, if you want wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, you have to step up to the EXL, which is the fully loaded HR-V here. But I think the 7-inch screen is fine. That's going to be found in the LX and the Sport trim. And I should mention there are only 3 trim level options as of right now for the HR-V, which is the LX, the base model, the Sport trim, which is the mid-level trim, and then the fully loaded EXL. I personally kind of recommend just getting a Sport model, front-wheel drive. I think that'll be good enough, but more on that a little bit later. And a digital gauge cluster will be coming standard with the all-new 2023 HR-V. That's going to be a 7-inch gauge cluster, and the vehicle's overall wheelbase has been lengthened. This is a wider vehicle now, so that's going to improve the comfort of the vehicle, the stability at higher speeds, and of course you will be getting more cargo space as a result of the longer wheelbase. That's what I've always liked about Honda's interiors. Honda tends to be some of the larger vehicles in its class, and we see that with the new Civic as well. It's a massive car. It's like the size of a mid-size sedan at this point. So this HR-V is going to be great for taller individuals. They shouldn't have a problem sitting in the front seats, the rear seats. So that's great. One of the biggest problems with a Mazda product is just how small their interiors are. They're far more cramped than the Toyotas and the Hondas. And before we talk about the drive and some of the specs, I want to talk about the safety features, because I think safety is very important in a vehicle like this. You will be getting the all-new Honda sensing safety features as standard here. However, blind spot monitoring will not be standard on the LX models. You have to get at least the Sport trim and up to get the blind spot monitoring, which I really hate. Most car companies will give you like the pre-collision safety assistance and things like that as standard. However, if you want blind spot monitoring or rear cross traffic alert, which are really the only 2 safety features I care about, almost every company makes you pay up for it. And the vehicle will be coming with 10 airbags as standard. Honda has always done great in crash test safety, and they've continued to improve their body structures to meet and exceed really the future crash tests that's going to be implemented in the future. Now let's get into some of the driving aspects. Obviously, nobody has had the chance to actually physically drive this vehicle just yet, but I can give my impressions on driving this vehicle based on my experience driving the Civic. Let's start out with the engine first. We have here a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine producing 158 horsepower and 138 pounds-feet of torque, mated to a CVT transmission. Now, I don't have an issue with the CVT transmission. It's a good, smooth transmission. Should not be an issue for most people. CVTs are not what they were like 20 years ago. Car manufacturers have really made these transmissions smooth and efficient, and they perform extremely well. In fact, they just mimic a traditional automatic at this point. But it's the power figures that I'm not a huge fan of. When I tested the Civic, it had the 1.5 liter turbo engine, so it produced a lot more horsepower and torque than this. But even that wasn't super quick. This far more abysmal numbers here. That's the one thing I don't like about this segment. These are rather pathetic numbers. Something like the CX-30 Mazda produces far more power than this. With the regular 4-cylinder, a Mazda CX-30 base model will produce 186 horsepower and 186 pounds-feet of torque, far more than this. But I guess if you're coming from the previous generation HRV, this is actually a little bit more power than the previous generation, which utilized a 1.8 liter 4-cylinder, and this new one now produces 17 more horsepower and 11 pounds-feet of torque more than the previous generation. And the fuel economy for this all-new 2023 HRV, it's going to depend on whether you get the front-wheel drive or the all-wheel drive. In my opinion, I would probably go for a sport model with the front-wheel drive to get that blind spot monitoring, plus it'll look a little bit cooler, and it's going to come with the 18-inch wheels. Standard, these vehicles come with the 17-inch wheels, but I think this vehicle will ride well enough even with the 18-inch wheels, so I don't think that's going to be an issue. With the front-wheel drive, you will be getting 26 in the city and 32 on the highway. If you opted for the all-wheel drive, it drops to 25 in the city and 30 on the highway. But I wouldn't be surprised if you beat these EPA numbers, especially with that CVT transmission. That's one of the best things about going with the CVT. You will be getting amazing real-world fuel economy. But if you live in a more inclement area, then yeah, definitely go with the all-wheel drive. But that will cost you about $1,500 more to get the all-wheel drive. This new HRV is going to be built on a brand new global architecture, much like the brand new Civic, and it's going to improve the ride quality, the refinement, and it's going to have a McPherson strut front suspension with a multi-link rear suspension, which I think many drivers will enjoy because the CX-30 comes with a torsion beam rear suspension. This one will come with a superior architecture, the multi-link, and the new Civic does drive genuinely great. In fact, it feels more like a German car than it feels like a Japanese car, which I think some people will like, but others might not like that. This new generation of Honda, sure, it drives great, but it feels a lot more sterile. Not really that exciting to drive, but I guess in this class of vehicle, that doesn't really matter as much. As long as it feels safe and stable and handles great, that's all that matters, and that's really all I want out of these vehicles. So if you like that more German, solid chassis type of feel, this new HRV should provide that based on my experience with the Civic. And you'll have 3 drive modes, a normal mode, an eco mode, and an all-new snow mode. And you'll even have a hill descent control. You're really going to need that on a flat parking lot, right? But whatever. They gave it to you. It's an all-new feature. Now, pricing for the all-new HRV, it's going to start at around $24,895. That's with the destination, and it's going to top out with the EXL model with the all-wheel drive. It's going to be around $30,195. I don't really think the EXL will be necessary, although you will be getting the upgraded 8-speaker audio system, which I've tried the Bose audio system in the new Civic. I don't think this HRV is going to get that. However, the Bose audio system sounded great. Not sure about this 8-speaker, but whatever. In my opinion, I think the Sport front-wheel drive for $26,895, again, that's with destination, is probably the way to go, and that's probably going to be your best value. But now I want to hear your thoughts. Are you of the Gen Z demographic? Does this interest you? I'll be honest, one thing I forgot to mention is this thing from the front end, at least, it just looks like a Ford Escape. So it doesn't really look all that awe-inspiring from the exterior, but I guess that really doesn't matter because the interior is amazing and it's a Honda. The resale value and the driving is going to be amazing with it. So whether you're a Gen Z or an older person or whatever you are, let me know your thoughts. I think this should appeal to just about anybody because this is going to be great value amongst cars in general, right? It's just a little bit on the slower side, but the price is decent, especially with the Sport front-wheel drive. The features, the tech, it's all easily accessible. No real learning curve. It's got everything that most people would want. The safety is there, the driving demeanor, the driving characteristics, all that should be great, and it should be really fuel efficient with that CVT transmission. So let me know your thoughts. Thanks again for watching. I'll leave the next video on the end screen here, so I'll see you there.